I like that. These dopamine hits.
Like, wow.
Works
Like,
for me. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also need it. I really need this boost, like something is interesting and I get engaged, and that's what motivates. That's what comes from the inside of me.
Mm.
And the oxytocin is not it. My first primal reaction was, ugh, don't come too close to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
But you let mine slip in, Chantal.
What do you mean?
With you. Like when I have extended care to you.
Yeah, but you
Probably
still let me some space.
it's not suffocating.
Yeah, you're not suffocating.
More genuine.
Yeah, and it's honest.
Right.
So.
And that fake crap.
Yeah.
I really care about you, that sort of thing.
It's really very new. That's kind of care from other people. All the different flavors, how they present it. Like when my friends were very angry with me, it took me a while to recognize that behind that anger, that initial anger, there was care. And then my whole system was soothing again. It was calm again. That was an eye-opener for me.
That's a huge lesson I've taken from this group, from Deef's teachings in particular, and coaching when I get worked up about something, which happens, from time to time, just now and then. But Deef's always, and then I apologize. I regret my intensity, but Deef always says, "No, it's care. It's because you care." And it's like, well, oh yeah, it's true. That's the root. And so now in the wild, I'm able to see that more in people, kind of the way you were describing, Chantal, with your caregivers just now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge gift.
It's a game changer, because my anxiety of this angriness, because for me, anger and irritation go straight to physical abuse. There's a direct link. And so my whole system goes into ready for impact. And I get this tunnel vision and I don't see anything else anymore. And so just having this twist, like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. There's not going to be, the link was broken. And also that I could say that I knew that it was care, but I couldn't feel it. And then they soften up, and then I could feel it again. So that's what I need. I need to feel, because if it's all, when I don't notice any sign anymore of care, then I'm too scared. So I cannot make a connection then anymore. So for me, it means I have to reach out and tell them there's too much anger for me to make any connection. But it's interesting. It's an interesting journey.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Can we talk about it now? We're gonna do something about it now. I wanna feel what love is, and I know you can show me.
So this is going to be trying to tackle a different angle of love that's a bit more complete than attachment theory. It's a bit more broader. That's the ideal. That's the goal. Earlier we talked about dopamine oxytocin, serotonin. So there's a map called Chemicals of Love. I forgot the author, but the author broke down lust, attachment, and attraction. Lust supposedly is driven by testosterone and estrogen. Last meeting we covered dopamine. Dopamine is driven from attraction. So dopamine is the territory of attraction, serotonin, and adrenaline, norepinephrine. And then attachment theory is obsessed about mother and child attachment, and Rhesus monkeys experiment. And that's all about oxytocin and vasopressin and empathy and bonding. But the downside of oxytocin and empathy is it creates tribalism. So it amplifies hatred of the other tribe. That's the price of having in-group, out-group. Sometimes they break it up into the stages of falling in love. So one is lust, desire. I'm going to call it desire because lust is a bit narrow-minded. It's just about romance. If you have an unmet need, a desire, you have an attachment trauma. Someone reminds you of something close, a trauma bond, you lust for it. You have a desire, you have an instant connection, because you're projecting something of unwanted, something you didn't get before, and then this person seems like it, and that's instant bond, maybe. This might be key later, but I'm going to try to work on that. Then last meeting we covered dopamine, and that's the sort of missing element, because that sort of is what guides your attention. It makes what you're attracted to. So if I can flood you with dopamine, then bam, you're attracted, and then bam, you're hooked. And a lot of games use that. So games do that by rewards. They give you little tokens to give you dopamine hits. And then if you have 1, 2, and 3, the third one is attachment, empathy. It doesn't have to be linear, but you probably need to have a combination of all three to have complete love. That's sort of today's argument. What is complete love and how to get complete love? So pay attention to this video, and I'm going to argue what's the tone of this video when he's talking about attachment.
For me, there are 3 main steps to healing those young attachment wounds. One is witnessing. Second is a corrective experience. And the third is releasing and transformation. The witnessing is, can the younger part share what it's holding? Because we don't want the self of the client to say, oh, you're loved, I love you, everything's fine. That's not going to work. Where did this belief that I'm unlovable, I'm not worth it, come from? The second step in that process is a corrective experience. And the corrective experience is internal. The part shares what it's holding, feels heard, seen, and known. It gets what it didn't get internally, and it's able to let go of what it's holding. It's witnessed by the self, and the self gave me what I needed and wanted and never got. And that's where the release happened.
So attachment theory, is he talking like he's talking to what? What's the tone of his voice? What's it remind you of?
Unconnected.
Unconnected. Okay. What else?
Making me fall asleep.
Pacifying. Okay.
That music wants me to beat him up.
There you go. But you're
Good
spot
for
on.
you, Pankaj.
So my critique of attachment theory is that it's sort of this top-down, pacifying, sleepy type of connection. Because attachment theory is based on Bowlby, and he studied monkeys and mother-baby connections, and then they're projecting that out into adult love. So then you have these therapists who talk with this creepy parent-to-child vibe to essentially pacify and hypnotize your inner children. So they take shortcuts and then they link attachment to love instead of all of love, which is sort of today's argument. So how many people have heard of Ross Rosenberg's self-love deficit disorder? This is a summary of his model of healing from codependent love, whatever.
It's time to say no to Band-Aid therapy, working on surface problems while neglecting the root cause.
Also listen to this guy's tone and his energy.
Codependency, self-love deficit disorder. Codependency is a mere symptom of not loving oneself. Codependency is not what needs to be treated. Rather, the root cause needs to be addressed. It all begins with attachment trauma, the root cause. This often occurs when a child is raised by a narcissistic parent who does not allow them to feel loved, respected, cared for, and safe. Love is merely conditional and judgmental. This trauma is then responsible for causing core shame. Core shame is a distorted belief of being fundamentally bad or flawed. Such toxic shame reduces a person to feeling only good when they take care of others.
Ooh, that's so pacifying when they go at
Guilt and shame, 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 guilt.
core shame. Somehow attachment trauma creates core shame. Okay.
While ignoring themselves. Loving someone while being invisible creates pathological loneliness.
Not only loneliness, pathological. What's the difference?
Deep, bone-aching emotional pain.
Oh, there. Bone aching. Loneliness. Okay.
This is the excruciating SLDD addiction withdrawal pain that reduces one to feeling invisible, worthless, and unlovable. SLDD addiction, which is the desperate need of a relationship that will make the lonely pain go away. This attachment traumatized, shame-based, pathologically lonely, narcissist-addicted person behaves with self-love deficit disorder, the selfless, compulsive caretaker who habitually attempts to control others into loving them.
Ooh. Okay, so that's the description of attachment trauma. Let's see if he describes the other side a little more loving.
Can we talk about it now?
Yeah.
That's the challenge today. I need to show you what love is, not just tell you. And I need to make sure Pankaj doesn't fall for the visual, even though I am attached to the visual. It's coming.
I'm in love.
The cure is the achievement of self-love abundance. This is the exact opposite of each of the SLDD pyramid's levels.
Exact
First,
opposite.
the root of the problem is addressed. Attachment trauma resolution occurs when a person in psychotherapy safely explores their repressed or hidden childhood trauma. Such allows them to realize core self-love, a realistic, optimistic, and self-affirming definition of self. This leads to existential peace.
Existential peace?
The polar opposite of pathological loneliness. For the first time, the newly self-loving person feels comfortable in their own skin, mutuality, and reciprocity in all of their relationships. The culmination of these achievements results in self-love, the serenity and acceptance of one's place in the world. Being perfect despite one's problems is the foundation for future loving relationships with self and with others. With these two pyramids,
So this is a problem based on Ross Rosenberg, and then this is a fix. So, does Ross Rosenberg embody self-love and existential peace? Let's see.
Typical psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral treatment techniques
do not work when you have a trauma-based disorder, which the roots are unconscious or disassociated. And I say that because most, and I would say around 90.
So do you feel where's the love in his tone?
5% of all the clients that I see now have been in therapy for great lengths, multiple times, and never had any of that therapy impacted their codependency or SLDD. And it's not that the therapist did not know what they were doing, is they didn't understand the problem of what I call self-love deficit disorder and its origin.
Look at the lovely pyramid. If you understand this, you're going to suddenly get self-love and existential peace, and it's just going to bleed out of your voice. All this love, can't you tell? There's so much life force coming out of him. Or do you feel like you want to fall asleep because attachment theory is about putting your inner children to a hypnotized trance, maybe? Is that what he's role modeling? Has he gotten out of pathological loneliness? Is he talking from existential peace? Or does he have that bone-aching, excruciating whatever?
But if you teach someone about self-esteem, you teach someone about boundaries, but the unconscious forces that pull them to narcissists and the fear and the loneliness and shame that binds them to these relationships that are often narcissistically abusive, the skill development does not stick. And if it does, it's never enough to offset their attraction and the magnetic pull to keep in these relationships.
Man, that's depressing. I'm trying to set up the problem so that I can present the solution. And then I'm trying to follow Dave Snowden's model.
Boundaries. We agree the stories of what we don't want to be, which creates some boundaries, but we leave open the possibility of what we can be to discovery in a process.
So setting boundaries is labeling what the problem is and trying to give you an embodied example, and then leaving the door open for some target of how to get love. Instead of just saying running away from attachment or running away from self-love deficit disorder to some magical self-love and whatever. That's a fantasy. So second chart. This is from somebody else, but the three triangles, since we're in triangle mode, is intimacy, passion, and commitment. And if you have all three, then you can have consummate love. I'm going to argue a lot of attachment is trying to shortcut intimacy. A lot of boundary setting is trying to avoid commitment. Set boundaries and leave if the person doesn't follow your orders. Is that commitment? And a lot of conflict aversion has no passion. When you have pacified, sleepy voice stuff, conflict aversion, there's no life. So attachment theory has basically killed passion and killed commitment, and has created this sort of childhood parent bond that's supposed to be full love. Isn't that disgusting? Okay, let's throw another chart, and then, because I want to get to the mega chart. This guy did like colors of love, and he's using Greek terms. And the three primary types of love are eros, ludus, and storge. He describes eros as romantic and passionate love. I would describe it as survival instincts and its core connection, almost like instinctive attachment, instinctive draw. Then there's ludus, which is game playing Livy because of this misspell. But playful love is something that's missing. And maybe attachment theory is trying to make everyone play safe. So if you can't play hard and you can't love hard, then you got nothing. This will be sort of the teaser. And then storge is friendship love, filial love, brotherly love. And from those three, you have the combinations of eros and brotherly love, which gives you agape, unconditional surrender love. And you have eros and playful love, which gives you mania, which is crazy, exciting love. That's where all the fun, super fun is. Fun, crazy.
Fucking cold.
Manic love. And then you have pragma, which is practical love, but also transactional love. So that's a combination of playing and familial love, friendship love. And then combined, you get this. I think we got most of it. So you got the lust, desire here. I put it here. This might not be perfect, but this is just a rough draft. Then you have an attachment up here. I linked it to intimacy. Then you have attraction over here. I linked that between playfulness and commitment. And then inside you have agape, mania, and pragma, practical. And then I had pointers that agape is about surrender. Healthy mania is about devotion. You're devoted to what you worship or what you're passionate about. And pragma, transactions that are towards love, are where you invest in a relationship. You invest in yourself, you invest in something else, you have the discipline for that, so your behavior shows that you love. You're putting care and attention into an investment. Because I'm trying to follow the inspiration of
In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. I can't stop now. I've traveled so far.
So does this sound like attachment, pacifying, numbed out love? Or does this sound like passionate, invested, consummate love? You definitely feel the passion, right? You feel the devotion, you feel the investment, and then you also feel some surrender, right? So it's got a combination of all three. It's a whole expression of love.
To change this lonely life, I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. I wanna feel what love is.
And the want to is like the desire. Love is something that calls for you to give more. Love is something that makes you want to take risks. Love is something that makes you braver. Love isn't something that makes you small and safe and pacified and sleepy, is it? Is that really worth chasing after attachment theory love, where you just constantly pacify your inner child? What kind of life is that? Right?
I know you can show me. I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. Oh yeah. I wanna feel what love is.
So part of the problem with academia is this kind of love they're scared of. This is scary love, because this is love that's in the territory of mania. This is a love that makes you do stuff that you don't think about, that your superego has no control over. So would a lot of attachment theory be trying to pacify and put your manic love to sleep? And just con you into surrendering to your superego with attachment theory? Follow orders is sort of attachment theory's approach to get you to surrender to authority. But then, if you're flooded by mania, by lust, desire, touch, eros, then bam, you lose your mind and you fall for old patterns. This happens to Richard Grannon. He admitted this recently in his Instagram. Let's see.
She can show me the psychiatrists.
So the question is, what are the key characteristics you're looking for when you're meeting a woman to avoid a narcissist, to avoid abuse? And this is Richard Grannon's hopeless answer. Or honest answer.
Notes that determine she absolutely has histrionic personality disorder, comorbid psychopathy, and I'll still go out with her if she's hot. She can have all of the traits of borderline personality disorder right there staring me in my face, and I'll still go out with her if she's hot. She can have 6 of the 9 traits that are the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, and I'll still go out with her if she's hot. I'm very stupid. Very, very stupid if she's hot.
How does this make sense? From attachment theory and superego stuff, it doesn't make sense. But from the mega model triangle on triangle Merkaba 3D triangle wisdom, passionate love might be the missing element. Learning the skill of directing your passionate love, connecting it to commitment and intimacy, that complete love, that might be what heals you. Maybe that's what the biblical teachings are talking about, that kind of love that would heal. And I would argue what's missing is the opposite of surrender. It's ludus territory, learning how to be playful, learning how to test boundaries, learning how to stretch boundaries, learning how to wrestle with other people, and get stronger with both attraction, commitment, and passion. If you don't work with your passion, then you end up with this admission by Richard Grannon recently.
I teach this stuff. I live none of it. I'm very, very stupid if she's hot. I teach this stuff. I live none of it. I live none of it.
Because when you're teaching this stuff, you're teaching this stuff from superego. You're teaching this stuff from submission. You're trying to get your inner children and your passion to submit to reasoning. And that's boring. That's not love. Your heart still wants manic love. Your heart still wants touch. Your heart still has desires. Your heart still has passion. You need outlets for your passion by stop playing it safe.
So isn't that like a self-protective, self-sabotage combination?
Well, if you're worried about getting trapped in a box by social expectations or by authority or exile, then you're worried about safety because maybe that's what you grew up with. If you were too passionate, you were too honest, then you got groomed to shut the fuck up. And if you had parents that didn't allow you to play and create a proxy so that you learn your boundaries and how to push boundaries healthy with other people, you don't know how to play. You play too strong or you play too weak. You don't know how to enjoy passionate play committed with someone else. And then self-love deficit disorder will say it's because you're not surrendering to authority and programming yourself good enough. And they'll give you tons of models and rules and a giant DBT workbook and stuff you can constantly memorize to police yourself incessantly. What fun is that?
Informed hypervigilance.
It puts you in constantly hypervigilance because it's a combination of commitment. You're worried about getting committed by everyone policing aggression. And then you're constantly seeing, are you safe? Surrendering to some authority figure, looking for approval. So that's part 1, attachment. That's part 2. Ooh. Love is shown and felt. So you do what you see, you do what the teacher does. So if the teacher is conflict averse and has no passion, then that's what you do. And then you wonder why it doesn't work.
I get the feeling, Deef, that a lot of this self-love deficit disorder, there was a time I really bought into it. It's very similar to in the 80s, they had this idea of validation is good for kids, that they do better. So, but you can give empty validation. And so self-love, with the self being just reckless, clueless, it doesn't land because of that. Because to have self-love, you have to have a self that's worthy of it, in a way, that you have actually developed your skills. You're curious, you've actually gone out, like the guy was saying, to new boundaries, what I don't want, and then you're accepting what can come in. Yeah.
Well, you have to gone out, so that's investing in yourself. It's investing in your skills of playfulness, and it's investing in attracting people and making yourself attractive. And it's also turning your crazy mania into some form of devotion. To honor caring. That was part of earlier comment. I think what Ellie said that, when she was intense, I would not judge it. I would say that's your care, that you following your desire, and then I would encourage that as devotion and learning how to channel your manic passion, not trying to squash it.
Yeah.
Which is what society tries to do by putting you in a box with very constricting rules on how to befriend, how to communicate with people. Because society is afraid of this passion. They would call this flooding. Brene Brown talks about this on our audiobook. Let's see if it links.
According to the Gottman Institute, flooding is, quote, a sensation of feeling psychologically and physically overwhelmed during conflict, making it virtually impossible to have a productive problem-solving discussion. One of the
What's wrong with that? You're just filled with passion. It's navigating the passion as a problem instead of going into rationality and stuffing your passion. Think about how much she's saying playing it safe in this description.
worst patterns that I brought to my marriage from my family was, get back in here and fight with me right now. Growing up, we did not take breaks during fights. No one ever said, hey, this is no longer productive and we should take a time out before something bad is said or someone gets their feelings hurt. Our strategy was get louder and meaner until you win or someone else is crying.
Why is that bad? That's a very aggressive form of playfulness. My aunt told me her rule growing up from her dad was she was a younger daughter, so the older sister would always have to let her win because she's smaller and younger. Except the mother had a different rule. So the mother's rule was the kids can fight, and the person that cries loses. And that's what she learned. So then she rolled over both me and Mom because she had more will and more aggression from that rule. She loved hard and played hard. That comes out of Brene Brown's teaching because...
What mean and critical thing am I rehearsing saying to this person? Screw you. Bring it. You think you can best me? Screw you. Screw you. Screw you.
And her form of emotional regulation is?
So much easier to offload pain than to feel pain. Offload pain than to feel pain. So much easier to offload pain than to feel pain.
That's what she's role modeling in her teachings, and she covers it up with flowery words. But back to this clip.
When I first married Steve, in the middle of a heated argument, he would say, "Hey, let's stop and take a break." I was like, "What are you talking about?" At some point, I think I realized that stopping the fight scared me. Fighting together seemed less painful than hurting alone. The research also helped me realize that it's not just Steve who gets overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed too. The difference is our strategies. He shuts down when he's flooded. I think I lash out, which is disastrous. I don't think I understood before.
He shuts down, she lashes out.
Before I studied this, that I thought flooding always caused shutting down. The haywire needle always meant like all systems shutting down. But I think when my needle goes haywire, I just lash out. It's a terrible combination. Now, when I get flooded, I'm as likely to say timeout as he is. This is a good thing because according to Gottman, chronic flooding sets us up to dread communicating. Fighting together seemed less painful than hurting alone. Our strategy was get louder and meaner until you win or someone else is crying.
Couldn't another alternative be the skill of rupture repair? The skill of making more rules to fight more fair in the future, instead of constantly calling time out and never fighting?
I get the feeling.
Where's the passion in this sort of passive approach?
When Brene Brown is talking about fighting, it is to win, which is, or playful fighting means I've got to win, whereas skillful playful fighting would be just to be in the ring, just to be in the ring. It's not about winning. It's about testing where the boundaries are.
Yeah, like bantering back and forth.
Bantering is perfect.
Yeah. But this is a skill. If you're fighting more in this attachment space, winner take all.
Yep.
And the person that gets trapped in a box loses.
It's got to shut
then
down.
When someone's trying to play, you don't understand it. You're playing in surrender land. You're not playing in. You're playing in attachment. You're afraid you're going to lose your attachment, get exiled. You're not in this sort of interplay to test boundaries, build strength, and to channel your passion into a game.
Isn't that like a person that doesn't know how to flirt?
In a sense, that could be a way. Yeah. Knowledge, skill.
Skillful farting, Robbie.
I don't know. I threw that out there.
Yes, that was a little out there.
More like a lot.
But if your center of gravity is to win or to hoard attention or to just turn the tables or something like that, playful fighting will shut the other person down. But if you do the same thing, would say, hey, let's play because we play, then and the other partner is also willing to do that, it's really insane.
So the skill of play is sort of a missing element, though.
Can you
My
tell me
prior
what the
argument for
symbol?
passion. Which
Can
one?
the symbol around playful, is that a flag? What you have sort of pictures that are associated with the words. Is that a flag?
It's a triangle and a flag. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a flag. Okay, okay. So it's like a game. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, like a game, like at the golf course.
So playfulness I'm linking as a geometric shape of a triangle because I want to give Zoe a headache because geometry scares her.
Mhm.
And then I'm linking storge as a box because schizoids are terrified of boxes. So they opt out on attachment and then they suffer because of that. That's why they're so paranoid, because they don't know where the dangers are. Part of being in a box is that creates categories, so now you can navigate other people. It helps make other people predictable, having boxes and having structures. And then I linked Eros to a circle, but then I thought it was better to have curves.
Yeah, I
So you
got
can
that
read
one.
into the curves however you like. Curves and loops. Okay. And then there's the symbols, so I added the symbol of intimacy as a 3D cup. So as you get intimate with somebody, you drink their essence. You share each other's essence of drinking each other. Container, but sharing what's real as an ideal for intimacy. And then for passion, when you have desire, that opens your eyes up. That's a combination of a circle and a triangle.
Fuck's sake.
More geometry.
Well, that looks like an eye to me. So is that like the lust of the eyes? That looks like an eye?
That's eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was
It's
the
a
cup?
symbol.
Sorry, I missed that.
The cup is a
Drink from
cylinder with a
drink
circle.
from my cup? Okay.
And I thought that was a good symbol for intimacy.
Mhm. Yeah, deep
Let's
depth.
go meet reel to reel, share a meal. Let's share a drink. Let's drink each other's blood.
Yeah.
Let's surrender to our final meal together, since we just
Wine.
passed
Drink
through
from the
Easter.
cup of me.
Yeah.
Of
The
us.
Holy Grail.
Yeah.
That's the ideal of agape. The cup that gives more life, or whatever, stuff like that. So we didn't have a neocon in person. If he was there in person, I would have maybe tried to get him to draw better pictures. This is my limited 3D drawing
And get him
skills.
to commission one with yeah, get him to commission one, man.
But
this is actually, yeah. Fuck you, D. Fuck.
Back to playfulness. So this is an expansion of dopamine, which was attraction territory. That's what disrupted everybody, because if I fuck with your dopamine, then I open up your play circuits. And then people that play dirty start playing dirty, trying to disrupt things because that's what dopamine does, or trying to posture and bully around. But healthy play maybe looks like this.
There's very tightly constrained rules, and you think, well, those are arbitrary. It's like, they're not arbitrary. Don't be a dimwit. Have you ever played with a dog? You think that's all socially constructed? There's a difference between a dog that can play and one that can't. You know, you get a dog often raised by psychologists that's so dumb that it just bites you if you play with it. And, you know, it has no idea what to do. It's such a clunk. It can't play at all. It just bites or drools. It's just a pain.
See? So the dog that isn't trained might have passion, but it's not restricted by commitment. It's not restricted by the shared rules. It has no awareness of creating the shared rules so both people are committed playing the same game. So ludus is a combination of passion and commitment, investment and devotion.
And then you get another dog that's well socialized, and man, that thing's ready to go. And it can indicate to you in a fraction of a second that it wants to play. It does something like that. It's a universal mammalian play signal. It's like, you want to go? It's like, yeah.
That readiness is passion, right? The dog is showing, fully owning, I want to play.
Yeah, it's whack. You can whack the, and you whack the dog just exactly the right amount, right? And the dog acts like it's been hit, but it knows it hasn't, and it pretends to tear off your arm because it is a wolf, but it actually doesn't. And it's like, the dog knows how to do this. It's not socially constructed. That's just insane. And a playful child is often very good at playing with dogs and other animals. And having a dog around is also a good way of helping your child learn to play, because if your child can play properly, then the dog will be its friend, because dogs like to play. And so you're trying to enable that spirit of play. With regards to children, you want to encourage them to be the sort of people that other people really want to have around, who are always invited to play, right?
And that's right there. Someone who's attractive to others. Because they play, and people know that they play fairly. They play in an attractive way. So that makes you attractive to other people. That expands your social sphere.
And if you do that, man, they'll take care of themselves, and then you'll have done your job properly. That's a good pathway to walk down, that pathway of play.
So what if play and passion is the way out, but conflict-averse therapists and wounded healers are going to try to squash your playfulness and your passion because it's threatening to their attachment theory of superego injunctions to get you to comply and submit to a bunch of rules and a bunch of memorized, boring crap. And then it just fools you because you still don't learn how to channel your passion. You don't know how to spot your mania. It's just in your shadow waiting to get possessed by your next repetition compulsion.
No positive sign.
Not a positive sign?
There's just no positives. It's just all defensive.
Yep.
Preparatory.
It's avoidance. Yes.
Red line, red line, red line. Yeah.
Or you're just hiding into attachment with your mother, and you're looking for a new therapist, or you become your own mother to mother yourself, and you got to put yourself to sleep because it's so boring. So this is maybe a hook, an example of a codependent. What would they want? We're just going to give some examples to sort of show how this chart works, because I'm trying to show you how different expressions are incomplete love, and then you can figure out how to make your love more complete. When you have a more complete love, then you won't be destabilized because your needs are met. And it's a triangle, and triangles are like super stable. Ali was trying to argue that last meeting, right? Except triangles are threatening to schizoids, so don't advertise that too much, because the terrifying triangles are doomed to schizoids. Let's go self-fantasy love.
I don't want love to be boring. I don't want love to be boring. I freaking get it. And if it is boring, how? I haven't had it. How if it's supposed to be this slow, easy thing? That it's not something that I've acquired? How if it's supposed to be this solid ground that I've never had it? And it sucks.
What's the emotion here?
Grief.
Grief,
Pity,
sadness,
pity, pity.
pity. Okay, pity, grief, sadness.
It sucks big time. You spend your days thinking that there's someone else out there who's like you, but really they're all with people who are your polar opposites and the same as you all at the same time. Think about when you were younger and what your childhood was like. Where did you escape to? Where did you go? Movies? For me, it was books. And the thing that makes me the same as a narcissist in their fantasy land is that I live in one too. That I think that I should have this whirlwind, passionate romance, and that things are supposed to be more beautiful than they are, and really beauty is found in the ordinary and the mundane. But when you spend your time trying to escape from a reality that is less than good.
That is less than good.
It's far less than good, far less than okay, far less than fine. You find yourself engulfed in books. You find yourself assuming a role, a character.
So I would argue this is being trapped in this top triangle. She's trying to surrender to fantasy. And the downside of trying to program your brain with fantasy is you always are left hanging in despair and sadness because your fantasy never happens. It can't happen in reality. You're trying to control the fantasy with your superego. You're trying to just get the attachment when you don't have the link to your desire and you don't have the link to your attraction. And you have no passion, you have no commitment in reality. It ends up being a false attachment. Jacob talked about it recently.
And her main focus is me. Like, just me.
Yes. That's my last thing I just described. Intimacy is all about me.
All about me, yeah. You're just an object. You should comply to
Commitment
what I
is
want.
all about you. So how much am I going to commit to you, the other person? Or if I get you to commit, I'm going to give you injunctions and try to trap you with you. And then if we want to get to we is the territory of passion. Because having passion alone is just like, don't you need some relationship to have passion with? How passionate can you be alone? Now, granted, you could be passionate
Playing
with an
with
object
yourself
or a
doesn't
project,
cut
but
it.
you're still passionate with something or someone.
Isn't passion reciprocal then?
Yeah. If you
It's a
trust
young
it.
experience.
Because then it's not me and it's not you. It's we.
It's we, and then the shared activity has its own benefit. You're multiplying combined passion if you can play well.
Like playing just by yourself, it's sort of not really that good. It's only with someone else it's much better.
Yes. Playing with yourself would be masturbatory or intellectual masturbation. Another angle of the narcissist love trap, Jacob's reflections.
We have fantasies of ideal love because then we view ourselves as special because our relationships are special, right? We think that, oh, we have the best relationship, the most perfect relationship. This person is perfectly compatible with me. For me, this also did manifest in a way of like, somebody will finally understand me. It's still so self-focused, right? You'll finally understand me. Somebody will finally get me. After all these years, someone will understand me.
So, finally, he'll get attachment. Someone will finally be perfect. How much effort is he putting in making himself attractive and attracting that person? How much energy is he trying to see what his desire and his passion is going? Or is he so focused about me and some idealized thing, he's trying to shortcut the system with his fantasy? And watch him realize it as he describes the telegraphing of how his brain works.
It's not like I'm like, I can do so much better than them. No, it's like this anxiety. What if I can do better than them? What if my soulmate's still out there? What if I'm missing out on my perfect person? I mentioned like being understood, but it's like I so desperately want to not be understood too. It feels like I want somebody to prove that they care about me by going up to me and like prying off my mask, even though I'm kicking and screaming the entire way that that's happening.
So prying off his mask, that's him wanting someone to finally see him, the real him, behind his mask. He has a deep desire for intimacy, but he has to control his attachment, so he puts on a mask. That's sort of the paradox of the narcissist's one-dimensional self.
And
But then it leads to
someone
this.
else to put in just the right wine in the cup, so then I will drink with it. But you have to do all the work. I won't do anything.
Oh, that's also how therapy works.
Yeah.
I want to find a new mother that does all the work.
Yeah.
I want to have a replacement parent because I haven't gone out of the womb, or I haven't grown up from babyhood. It's just me and the breast.
Go to the next
breast of
person who
death.
can't answer your questions.
Yeah.
Can't ask you questions yet. So he's got this paradox, and watch him recognize his despair. It comes later.
And obviously that's not a fair expectation of anybody, right? And it's so contradictory, isn't it? It involves somebody who is perfect, right, to make me perfect, but to also recognize that I'm not perfect and I'm terrible. So how can it even be a fantasy of ideal love, right, when half of the equation is like completely flawed? It's like I'm never going to be able to truly love somebody because like my soulmate doesn't exist, because my expectations for love are so high, which really fucking sucks. Like it will never feel complete because I'm so caught up in these grandiose fantasies and I can only view love through this hierarchical lens.
Hierarchical lens, that's also part of me putting this at the top. And it's part of agape, so that's instead of giving to grace, you want to play the grandiose, you want to be God, so that's omnipotent defense. You want other people to surrender to you. Then you want, or for a narcissist, you want an ideal love that's going to rip off your mask so then you can finally be seen under your terms, which he just rationalized can't happen. But watch him flip.
And I think that's the most tragic part of this, is that, one, I can rationalize why the ideal partner and my soulmate exist, but also, it does. To some degree, it does. It's not practical to try to like seek somebody like that out, and you know, 99.999% of the time, you would never find that person, but they still technically exist.
Technically, there could be someone out there that exists that would be his perfect person. How much effort is he putting towards getting to it?
And so I'm going to spend the rest of my life seeking whoever the fuck that could be. God, that sucks. I kind of had this realization just in the moment of the high expectations I put on love and how I'm never going to be able to fulfill that. God, that sucks. I'm never going to be able to fulfill that.
So attachment theory, self-love, deficit disorder, fixing, all that stuff I'm arguing, leaves everyone sad and pitiful because it's sympathy and pity, and it's so me obsessed and attachment obsessed. It's not building the skill of being playful, being attractive in society and seeking out other attractive people to play with, and having shared commitments that you're invested in and develop trust. And also having playful interactions that allow you to channel your passion, that allow you to transmute your mania into channeled energy into some sort of creative life force so that you have a reason to fucking live.
Yeah. So the me focus then tries to shortcut the inadequacy from fantasy, which might happen like a casino. I'll have the
The
big
me
jackpot
is
one day.
attached to the fantasy, yeah, because it's not linked to shared reality.
And
The
still,
boxes
yeah.
of shared reality, you're in your mind and you're just fantasizing about me. How can I get more of mom's breast with the perfect person? It doesn't grow up. It's still stuck in, let me surrender and let somebody else do the work. Let me get a therapist, let me get someone else to do all the work.
I'll go to the casino and start putting in the coins, and sooner or later, one of them will work.
So let's take a little group think about where do BPD fall versus narcissists. Narcissists probably hang out in this attachment. Wouldn't borderline be more about channeling the mania?
Well, borderline would vacillate, I would suggest first. So vacillating between mania and what? Maybe. No, maybe they hang
Mania
out in
and
mania. Maybe
agape?
that's the whole point. Mania is bipolar, right? I think you got it.
Maybe they vacillate with mania, or they're vacillating with eros, and then they vacillate with playing, but they play too hard.
Yes.
Yeah,
They don't have
they make you pay.
They don't have the practical storge side of shared rules and shared reality.
Storge.
Storge, stored.
And the mania is
They're too
to do with
much. It's
abandonment,
too
right,
much
isn't it?
mania that floods other people, and they want containment. So they use one person as their container, favorite person. See? So they need a transition object to have a proxy of their favorite person, and then slowly they need to expand to having more containment through broader family, through broader sources, instead of trying to pigeonhole it in one person.
Yeah.
They would need, like, if they didn't get a good enough mother from childhood, they need a good enough mother as from therapy or from a group or something. Let me see. This is a reminder of good enough mothering.
A mother's main role is to traumatize the child, to frustrate the child, to push the child away, to encourage a child to become separate from her, to render the child an individual, to foster in the child a proper reality testing, and to get rid of the child's magical thinking. And
So, to foster pragma, practical, and storge shared reality. Build a reality tester. Almost traumatize the child to start sorting through reality and maybe slowly developing a bias for reality instead of fantasy. Or at least have an equal.
at the same time, there's a fine balancing act, because the mother needs to continue to be, throughout this process, a safe, a secure base. She needs to be present, she needs to be empathic, attuned to the child needs and child's fears and anxieties, caring enough to do something about these things, holding and containing, loving unconditionally, and yet demanding from the child certain accomplishments, milestones in the child's development. And not many mothers know how to do this. Not many mothers know how to balance these utterly conflicting demands. On the one hand, to be a safe base, and on the other hand, to push the child away. On the one hand, to love and care for the child. On the other hand, to frustrate the child. On the one
Well, so maybe the borderline black and white thinking and opposites. They just need to learn from mother to turn it into playfulness. The ability to see opposition, to see the opposites and the paradoxes, could be translated into a skill of playfulness. And if you can present things in a playful way, then you become attractive. Is that why Brene Brown can tell compelling stories and become so famous, using this ability of borderline opposites to captivate audiences with this attractive story that sucks people in?
On one hand, to be empathic and loving, and on the other hand, to traumatize the child. Not many mothers know how to accomplish this. Equilibrium. The child is poised on the cusp of what is called object relations, relations with other people. He needs to say goodbye to mommy. He needs to internalize her, introject her, and carry her with him for the rest of her life as a mere voice. And the mother needs to let go. She cannot allow herself to be absent or selfish or depressed, to infantilize herself, to parentify the child, to use the child as an instrument to realize her unfulfilled dreams and fantasies and wishes. She can't do any of this if she's a good enough mother. And regrettably, few mothers, by these definitions, by these criteria, few mothers are good enough mothers.
So instead of having a therapist that's obsessed with attachment, who would try to pacify your inner child, you would need somebody to be a container that can encourage and is not intimidated by your passion. Someone that will role model a dominant enough presence. Is this a model of that? Maybe, I hope.
Most people aren't held with that level of presence. What is the why behind their what? What kind of thing are they looking for? Digging into the root of what really drives their submission. And I would pull out that root and basically present them with that root. Thank you for breaking me. Thank you for allowing me this release. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for giving me this space. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to show my true self. Most people aren't held with that level of presence. And that's really what really effective domination is you are holding a submissive in your dominant presence and energy in a way that they are not held in any other way, in any other sphere, in any other contact.
So that's going back to playfulness, but having a master, someone who's much better at the game than you, that will yield and not crush you with their skill.
Container.
But will contain you because they're not intimidated by your mania or your passion, because they've learned how to channel their passion, so they're not flooded by you, and they can hold you to allow you to explore the extent of your power, of your aggression, of your passion, of your mania, without having some sort of container. You're just going to go into the world and you're just going to flood it, and then you'll get shut down by the world. So then you need some sort of proxy, dominant presence to hold you, which works the same in sports or games when you're playing with someone and learning a craft.
Scrutiny. He is looking at her like under a magnifying glass.
See? Passion is intense gaze. That's power. Amplification.
Nothing is hidden from you, the dominant. They are totally exposed before you. There is no hiding. There is no running. There is no shame. It is, I see you fully.
Intimacy.
I see you fully physically, and I see into you. And yes, I will evaluate you under a magnifying glass, but it is for your benefit and for our benefit. And we're going to grow together, and we're going to play together, and you will be seen fully in that space.
Because some, maybe BDSM, they allow play. That's one of the few sectors that's exploring play and dominance, submission, and passion, where we're so sanitized in mental health that conflict is all constantly policed. Any sort of aggression is shut down, so then you never learn how to channel your passion. It just gets stuck as mania and labeled as manic craziness that you just need to constantly put a cap on. But then you're losing all your pure energy. That would be very depressing. That would be very exhausting to just constantly shut down your own natural craziness. Have no outlet to channel it. Not letting your lust and your desire, your survival instincts, to search out things that naturally touch your heart. Will this link?
So maybe you're someone who goes to therapy, who does the journal prompts, the inner child work, the reparenting work, the shadow work, the work, and you feel beyond frustrated that you're not healing. Sometimes it seems like you are, but then inevitably something triggers you and it's 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Girl, I have been there. The reason you're not healing is usually because you're too attached to and identified with your pain. As much as we say we hate our trauma, sometimes we build our entire identity around it. Carolyn Myss put it eloquently in her book when she said, the sharing of wounds has become the new language of intimacy, a shortcut to developing trust and understanding.
A shortcut to developing trust and understanding. So people become attached to their pain and attached to sharing stories of suffering. Because attachment theory is attaching. You end up getting attached to chasing after attachment theory, or getting the perfect thing, and it's about chasing. It's about sharing the struggle of never getting there. And then you get rewarded in support groups and by therapists to be a constant lifelong project. You get reinforced. Trauma bonded, yeah. And it's a shortcut. It's presented as a shortcut for trust, because you never invest in your social interactions and commit to learn embodied trust. And you don't really get to know yourself and know other people, so you don't really understand your love and other people's love, because you don't play.
Shared social dumping as a way of relating.
It's a way of relating and finding yourself and finding someone else, and then discovering more of yourself through play. In shared reality, because if you're playing with other people in a relationship, that has some permanence. If you're just playing with each other in fantasy, that doesn't stick as much. So,
Hello, trauma bonding. When you are too invested in being damaged, you block your own healing. And look, I get it. It is very hard to let go of your attachments to chaos, pain, and your victimization.
and it's very hard to let go of the breast of death. My journal prompt or something. It's so good to have a parent figure, a wounded healer, a therapist, some favorite person to latch onto as your supply, as your God. It's very easy. It's almost promoted to latch on to become a wounded person forever. That's the downside of the attachment triangle trap.
There is comfort in suffering to some degree. And as much as we can consciously say we want to heal, when that pain is comfortable and familiar, our brain will seek out to reaffirm it even if it's painful. Trauma bonding. So take a good hard look at yourself. Do you rehash your trauma again and again and again with friends? Do you use it as an excuse to prevent you from getting outside of your comfort zone and trying new things? Sometimes we're too invested in being broken to allow our tragedies to be transformed into something healing and beautiful. Which brings me to how to heal. So in Viktor Frankl's book, he says that in some way,
suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning.
So, the way out is you're attached to your suffering, to your pain. I would link his meaning angle, that it's the pathways through passion. Because passion allows you to take pain and eat it up and make it yummy. Because when you're in pure manic passion, pain and pleasure are linked. And then you can flip it by being playful and create meaning out of your pain. How did she do it?
so this is going to be a difficult exercise, but I've done it for every awful event in my life. My sister's suicide, my sexual assault, the worst romantic and platonic breakups I've ever had. It's a bitch, but it works. I want you to sit down, think about what you want to heal, and ask yourself this question. How can I turn the worst thing that's ever happened to me into the best thing that has ever happened to me? List it out, be very practical. So in the case of my sister's suicide, I realized if I could heal other people and prevent them from taking their own lives, then my suffering would have meaning. In the case of my breakup, I thought if I can utilize this pain to become the best version of myself and to learn how to love myself, then my suffering would have meaning. In the case of my best friends abandoning me during the worst year of my life, I realized I could make that the best thing that ever happened to me by finally learning how to choose myself, validate myself, and become my own best friend.
So if you flip from an attachment angle, which easily is about rejecting stuff you don't like, I will attach to this and then I will not accept change. I will cling to attachment. Or you can surrender, accept to grace, and then now you can see life as a giant game where you're dealt different cards. And it's up to you to learn and grow from each experience and how to take your painful suffering and turn it into meaning, into skill, into gifts. But if you don't have the skill of playfulness and you don't have anyone that's helped you or encouraged you, then it's easy to continue in the attachment model of fantasy, of rejecting things you don't like and waiting for a mother or some authority figure to help you. It's a pity plea to say, someone help me, I don't like this, I'm suffering. That's a baby tantrum.
So if you've been doing a lot of work and feel stuck, chances are you're not healing because you haven't been able to make your suffering mean anything beyond yourself. You're likely very comfortable in this pain, chaos, and being a victim because it is familiar to you. But when you can powerfully reframe your suffering as a bridge to something better, to something meaningful, purposeful, and beautiful, your suffering will not go away, but it transforms.
Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning.
So meaning, purpose, and play, that's sort of the longer angle, sort of this pointer.
What is the purpose in my current pain? What is the purpose in my current pain?
How is
What
this
is the
going to
purpose
make
in
me
my
a
current
better
pain?
person in
What
the future?
is the
a
purpose
better
in my
person in the
current? What is the
Or
What is this teaching me about relationships? What is this teaching me about myself? What is this teaching me about relationships?
that's sort of this angle of life is a game. Everything can be learned from. If you have this playful attitude, But if you're in this survival attitude of, I need to cling on to my life vest, my fantasy for dear life. If I lose my attachment to my parent figure, I die. Abandonment terror. This is, you don't trust the real world yet. And, or you've been groomed where you don't trust how to play and find your own footing. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to land
Makes a lot of
this.
sense to me.
What a sense, what?
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense for you. Okay, good. Somebody is benefiting.
Well, I know I have. Straight up, straight up.
Let's get a reminder now. So we talked about playfulness. We talked about intimacy. Okay, so here's a different angle. It's not really, but what people do instead of doing all three is they try to negate or fixate on one, or they fixate on their two things. So when we talked about BPD, maybe they're addicted to mania. So then you go on the opposite side of the triangle. They need containment. Boxes. And then people that are addicted to attachment and surrender, all about me, they need playfulness. They need conflict. They got to get their hands dirty and play and learn passion and commitment. Let's see. Someone who's addicted to perfection, I guess, overcommitted, obsessive. They might need to get physical and see what sparks their desire, their eros, their romanticism or something that brings their spirit back to life. The alternative is saying that if you have this model to see where you're deficient, you can make your triangle stronger instead of being trapped in one corner or one section and then trying to police it or fix it or something. You have a more whole love, and then everything else just sort of slowly fits in better. But the shortcut is negation, and society will teach you negation and say, oh, your mania is bad. Oh, you're too obsessive. Oh, you're too focused on yourself. You're too focused on fantasy. But that doesn't tell you how to get out of it. That's my critique. So here's a dating secret for people. Because in the in-person group, I hear a lot of ranting about dating. So this is, Ted found a dating secret, and he shared it. And we'll see how it links in here. Does it match? Is he playing? Is he using the triangle to win women's hearts?
So we met on Bumble.
Okay.
And then we went out and had a drink. He came dressed really nice. I don't know, most guys show up dressed like they're going to a Mavs game or something. So ridiculous. But yeah, it was a nice date, I thought. It was a little over 2 hours, and we were really connected.
You guys hung out for 2 hours.
So I felt like there was a pretty good connection there. I mean, he was an amazing guy.
So he dressed really nice, and he spent 2 hours, so he attracted her desire because he looked nice, and he committed by dressing nice. That's playing that angle, right? commitment and passion.
Then I never heard from him again.
In that 2 hours, we always ask, did anything happen that, in the back of your mind thinking maybe this is the reason he didn't call me back?
No, nothing that I can think of.
So, Ted, do you remember going out with Charlotte?
Yeah, Charlotte was great.
Well, she gave us a call, said you guys had a great date, and she said she never heard from you after that and asked us to give you a call on her behalf.
Look, this is going to sound weird, but I think I discovered actually the secret to dating women, and it's kind of worked a little too well for me.
Okay, but if it's working, what's wrong with Charlotte? Like, why would you not want to go out with her again? And what is this thing that you've discovered?
Did you ever see the movie Crazy Stupid Love with Ryan Gosling?
Yes, I have seen that movie, yes.
I have not.
Yeah. It's just a nice kind of romantic comedy, but he just does these things that I was like, does that work? And so I just tried it. It's really simple. Like, you just kind of dress real nice, and you never talk about yourself. You're always just asking questions.
So dress real nice and always ask questions and not talk about yourself. So don't get lost in your stuff. Get lost in the other person's stuff. And does this work?
And then I did it, and it really worked. And it kind of worked on every date I went on after that. And I think it's like most guys don't even want to do that. They just want to brag about themselves. And I was like, what if I don't? And I think it worked. And for Charlotte, I mean, she was lovely. I had a great time on the date. I just think there wasn't enough of a connection between the two of us. I think, she's going to find someone fantastic for her. I just don't think her and I were a good match.
Can I go back to this secret of dating women? You don't talk about yourself at all? You just ask them questions about them the whole time?
That's what people love to do. They love to talk about themselves. And it feels like if you're on a date, you're trying to get to know someone. Why not just ask them questions and hear about themselves? They'll enjoy it, and you'll get to know who they are.
So that's investing in getting to know the other person, you. And that triggers attraction. And dressing nice triggers desire, looks, right? And then how does he talk to her coming up here?
Aren't they asking questions about you?
Yes, but I think that's when you kind of answer as short as possible and then turn it back on them. You want to know more about them. If you're looking for a mate, you really want to find out as much as you can about that person. And if they enjoy it, they're hopefully going to have a good time.
I agree.
And
so that's investing in the other person, and that creates attraction. You're showing your commitment and interest, and it might be triggering her desire that wants to be seen. It's making her feel intimate because she's getting witnessed and seen and adored, because watch how he talks to her.
And you're saying this is working really well for you?
It works for me, and I've tried to tell my other guy friends, and they're like, that sounds awful. That sounds like a real boring night. I want to tell them about me and all the great things about me. And I'm like, okay, keep trying, but
it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. Charlotte gave us a call. As you kind of alluded to, she did have a great time on the date. She's actually on the other line. Can we bring her in on this conversation?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Charlotte, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Say hello to Ted.
Oh, hey, Ted. How are you?
I'm good. Charlotte, how was Jamaica?
Oh, Jamaica was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, you were going with a bunch of your friends, right?
Yeah, we had a really good time. It went well.
Did you do the waterfall thing? Did you climb that waterfall that you wanted to?
Yeah, I did. It was really, really awesome. And
you see what he's doing? He's role modeling what he's saying. And you're seeing how she responds, because he's putting enthusiasm, passion into his questions. And he remembered, because he invested himself in listening to her story. And she's making her feel seen because she's able to talk about herself. So she's feeling attached. He's developing attraction. And he's amplifying her fun, her desires. She wants more. Yeah.
It was amazing. It was even better than I had expected. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Ted, the reason we called you is to see if you would like to go out a second time with Charlotte. We'll pick up the tab for date number 2. Do you have any interest in going out with Charlotte a second time?
I think, Charlotte, you are an amazing person. I actually had a great time on our date. I honestly feel like if there was a stronger connection from my end, it would be awesome to go out again. But I do think you're such a fantastic person that you're going to find someone who's got a deeper connection with you. And I don't want to waste your time because I think you're a great person. So I'm going to have to pass, but I know, Charlotte, you're going to find someone soon.
All right. Well, I mean, if you change your mind or anything, like I'm around, and I would even like to hang out as friends if that's possible. So you have my number. So let me know if you change your mind.
That sounds great, Charlotte, and I hope you meet someone that's going to give you everything you deserve.
Ted, appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for being part of the program this morning. You're a good sport.
Oh, my pleasure. Have a great week.
All right. Charlotte, unfortunately, you didn't get the answer you were hoping for, but you know what? It sounds like at least you made a friend in Ted.
Yeah, that was a bummer, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll come around.
Yeah, that was a bummer because she's more attached.
Compulsion, yeah.
Now she's sad. So too much focus on attachment brings up grief. Instead, work on your skills of attraction and desire, become more playful, and then you have more options. And then intimacy. Will this be something to wind us down?
It was nice to be with someone who actually knew something about me, as opposed to Tinder dates or being set up. I mean, he has seen me at the hospital with no makeup, and at your house not trying to be perky or appealing. What you and Toby have, what I dream of finding, is that intimacy. It's letting people see the worst part of you without being scared. It's letting people see the worst part of you without being scared. But shouldn't Toby be able to express his deepest fears without punishment? Isn't that what marriage is? Be able to express his deepest fears without punishment? Without punishment? Express his deepest fears without punishment?
So the land of punishment is the surrender land, because that's using boxes and right and wrong and God voice to say who's all good, who's all bad. It's not being playful and trying to use your brain to change rules that create more play in the future. To work with each other's boundaries so that it's fun, win-win on both sides, as best you can. And practical, and allowing some of your mania, combining practical, pragma, and mania together to get playfulness. Crazy. Positive fantasy. And I failed, but I tried to show you what love was instead of explain it.
The need of an experience, not an explanation. 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 The need of an experience.
Amir Khan has spoken. Okay, I'm done. Where is the fucking compassion to just say, wow, you know, that's what's going on in her world? Where is the fucking compassion? Where is the fucking compassion? Where is the fucking compassion? Where? Game, recognize game. Real, recognize real. Game, recognize game. Real, recognize real. Game, recognize game. Real, recognize real. Game, recognize game.
Tough topic. But I think the visual is useful. Well, maybe I'm still digesting that. But it's a strong argument that attachment theory is limited. When we have a broader view of love and a more complete adult view of love, maybe it comes easy. And maybe codependence and mentally ill people, they're already loving. They just need to have more skill and have a more complete love. They're already wanting healing. Your defenses want to be safe or want your shadow to get expressed. Your defenses want your grief to get resolved. It's already in motion. There's already processes that are thriving and pushing towards wholeness, truth, love, connection. Just help it out. And then maybe this...
The body knows what to do.
Yeah. Your body already knows, so this might give you a little bit of space so that you can listen a bit more. You can cooperate with people a bit more. So now we're going into after party time. So we had our formal session. So then we can continue on the theme, dive into other stuff, act it out, and after party can continue for hours or longer. And SAS has as an after party question. There's after party yes. If someone ghosts me, I tried to erase them from my mind not to be friends. I cringed at her suggesting to be friends because in my mind he already rejected her. He didn't think of asking her to be friends. Oh, the second date update. That might be a battle between surrender and reality testing. Or fantasy and reality, right? So you're free to use that erasure method to keep your fantasy, whatever, all or nothing and all that stuff. But ideally, it's a bit of an overreaction to constantly have to erase and ghost everyone to avoid grief. So maybe you need containment for grief. You need a witness or containers or expression to express your grief and get used to normal rejection, normal losses, normal romantic banter to make it more playful. To recognize that when you're investing stuff, sometimes it's not going to work out. Enjoy the process. And maybe recognize that your version of love and attachment is still merging, me with the other, mother. Honor that, because that's love, that's your desire for intimacy, right? But then you need more skills of play, of we and you.
And also the joy of risk.
Oh, so you learn the joy of risk, and you learn the joy of reward sometimes. So it's just, there's a liveliness of being, making choices, investing, getting some wins and getting some losses, but you have to accumulate some wins and losses so then you get the joy of the risk.
And to appreciate the fine line between anxiety and excitement.
Well, if you can take the anxiety and you turn to excitement and passion, then that can give you more fuel.
Yeah, if anxiety's been your main line, then that slight change of scope can reprogram a little bit. There is a possibility that your body's registering the excitement as a form of anxiety until you become more accustomed to it.
Oh, this happened in person. So I wonder, because of social media and the way therapy works and self-help works, could the dynamic of asking questions be reinforcing surrender, expert, student, I'm the wrong person looking for approval type of relationship? That was more obvious in person. It's a little harder to read from chat. So instead of framing the question of like, I got ghosted, your cringe is recognizing your limits, right? You cringing is recognizing how far you can go and what your comfort level is. So just recognizing your limit and your cringing is self-awareness. And it's just up to you to just keep expanding your limits to see how much you can play, how much room you have to play. It's not up to us or somebody else to become your authority figure of what your instincts is, of what to play. We can provide a space to help you explore more and maybe reflect and give you more perspective. But if we take over your God voice by over-interpreting it and giving you injunctions and saying, this is the way out and whatnot, it could be reinforcing this teacher-student super-ego injunction. That happened in person, and it took a while to sort of show that and show that and show that. And I don't know if it's sunk in. In earlier meetings, we were doing ISTDP, and here are 3 mistakes of ISTDP. And one of that is taking away someone's agency. I think that was the 3rd one. Let's see.
The first one is to proceed with therapy as if you have a conscious therapeutic alliance in place, but you really don't, meaning a therapeutic contract that defines the therapeutic task and the definition of treatment. This involves making sure you have a collaborator that sees his or her defenses, they see them as a destructive force in their life, they don't want to do them anymore, and seeing the way to go is experiencing repressed emotions.
So this would be having a shared contract. So that's pragmatic, transaction negotiated, and it's a shared commitment. If we're dealing with people that are linked to superego, they ignore they just assume master subject and they impose their injunctions. In my relationship with my ex, in the 5 years we had it, we never had to define the relationship. So we could be on the same page on what the expectations are. So the DTR that wasn't spoken ended up being that I was supposed to fit into a box, and the parameters of the box I was supposed to fit in was I was supposed to not do all the things she didn't like from all her exes, and I was supposed to do the things that she liked, and I was supposed to know. And she didn't know, she just knew by feel when it got triggered. So I got boxed in to try to shapeshift based on her past because we didn't have the shared commitment. She wasn't able to articulate that. So then the secret contract was I was there to make sure she wasn't too triggered, and when she got triggered, I'm not supposed to talk about it. I think eventually I figured that out, because when she got triggered, I wanted to talk about it to get better, because I'm more playful. But when I talked about it, she felt shame, so she got angry at me when I talked about it. It took me a while to figure out that dissonance. Or maybe I never did. Mistake number 2.
It can't just be you seeing all of that and wanting all of that for your patient. That really the patient has to see all of that and want all of that. Clear contract, that conscious will and awareness on the part of the patient about what the therapeutic task really entails.
So you have to be patient with patients. Or you need to find a therapist that's patient with you, which might be hard, especially if you have intensity and they can't handle flooding. Patience is a virtue, and it's probably rare.
Number 2 is not working in the transference. All defense mechanisms that crop up in therapy have relational implications. They're implying mixed feelings on the part of the patient towards the therapist. Gratitude on the one hand, here's someone who seems to really care and try to help us and get close to us, and negative feelings on the other hand, irritation, anger, and so on, because, hey, you're messing with my defenses.
So positive and negative feelings. So you have the breast of life, of food, and then you got the killer breast. And these two split comes at you, so then it's easy for the therapist becomes the transference object of the new God or the new mother. And then that projection and reenactment gets transferred onto the therapist, and then that role plays out. The goal is to combine that split. And then my angle of combining the split is by giving you guys a triangle. A self-sufficient structure of 3, so you don't need to spend so much energy by combining splits together. You have 2 triangles of a 3D Merkaba, if I could draw a better 3D picture. But right now it's just Star of David.
That I have relied on for years and years and years, that have been my best friend since I was 5 years old,
So the people have defenses that they've been using since 5 years old. They're used to that. That's their way of getting attachment. So in therapy or as a friend, calling out that defense and pointing it out where that's not intimate, or you can level up. You can now meet people face to face without all the masks, without all the defenses. But you have to be patient and you have to be calm to sort of invite that inner child or that real self out into the light. Maybe that was Kelly's reflection on IFS's theories on his journal of trying to get the inner children out, but it takes time and baby steps because they've been sheltered and hidden. So it's working in the transference and then calling it out and inviting that and pointing out the defenses.
So when defenses begin to crop up, you want to, in your mind, assume that, okay, there's the beginning of rise of these mixed complex feelings towards me. And so you're going to want to inquire into that as a way of avoiding a transference neuroses. How are you reacting here with me? Could we take a few minutes and look at that? With an open, non-pressuring attitude, simply inquiring into the here and now. How are you feeling towards me? How are you reacting here? You can do that, even with fragile patients.
So that would be learning how to have the proper touch of an open heart and distance, and then being playful and curious and trying to attract the secretive hidden parts to come to the surface.
Mistake number 3, not undoing the omnipotent transference resistance. This is the regressive wish that they can sit back and rest on their laurels while you do the heavy lifting and the hard work of tearing down their walls for them, fixing their problems for them, essentially. And so to say things like, you're appealing to magical abilities I don't have. There's nothing I can do for you when you're behind this wall. And outsourcing responsibility for who needs to resolve and deal with your problems to me or anybody else hoping to be rescued isn't going to help you. It doesn't work that way. Therapy isn't magic. Therapy isn't magic. It can be difficult to be that frank and direct about the limits of our powers, but it's absolutely critical in order to undo the omnipotent transference resistance. This regressive wish that they can sit back and that you can fix what actually only they can fix. Therapy isn't magic.
So this omnipotent defense, where the person plays victim, and at the same time the parasitic, grandiose person jumps in and does the codependent fixing, that reinforces this old pattern of master-slave, superego, toxic superego relationship. It's hard to break out of this. And my shortcut is you've got to learn how to be playful. Playfulness requires timing. It requires building the challenge. It requires of finding an adversary that pushes you, exposes your blind spots, and at the same time you can do the same thing for them. So now you have a new relationship that's about getting better at playing, getting better at life skills, getting better at dealing with passion, getting better at being more engaged, more invested. And that reciprocal relationship starts multiplying, where maybe you won't need a therapist anymore because you grew up. But I think the passion thing is important because flooding is a weak spot for everybody. And social media makes flooding even worse because now we have something called flooding the zone.
You could say it's dogpiling. They're dogpiling the comments. They are, to use the
Young
Agenda
version of
21
Richard.
terminology, they're flooding the zone. So the zone is now flooded with bad signal, really, really bad signal. And when the human being who comes to your video goes down to the comments, that bad signal, and the bad signaling by the bad actors, to use the Brett and Eric Weinstein terminology, it evokes a certain emotion in the people reading it. That emotion is not good. They don't feel good reading that. They walk away from that with the impression that the world's gone mad. People have lost their reason. They don't want to think anymore. Well, you know, not quite. Some of this really is just shadow play, shadows on the wall.
So there's flooding the zone, and then here's an example of therapists flooding nonsense. And we've been trained to say this is a good thing.
Okay, yeah, I've reached out to a lot of them, but you know what? My therapist, actually, I was talking to my therapist recently about what it means to like reach out to people from your past and why we do that, and she had like really articulate and good advice.
Ooh, what is it?
She couldn't remember, so she had to call the therapist. Let's see how good this advice is, if we can remember it.
Hi, oh wise sage.
Hi, everyone. Is everything okay? Your text messages sounded urgent.
Well, so we were talking about exes and like and why we reach out to them, and I remember you just had this like very sage advice that.
Why do we reach out to exes? Because we're manic. We want love. We're passionate about them, or they trigger old passions. That's why. But will she say that, or will she say something else? Or, I don't know. Let's see.
I can't quite articulate in the same way to how to.
She forgot.
Well, sometimes we have to go back to the well to know that it's dry. The well really symbolizes our mother wounds, and even though we know that this well or this relationship doesn't nourish us anymore, it's just simple human nature to periodically need to check to make sure and remember.
It's human nature to go back to a well and check. What?
Yeah.
Finger licking good. Oh man.
So it has nothing to do with whether or not we're like a good or a bad person. And if we send party emojis.
No, this is all part of the spectrum of the human grief experience. As you're processing something, it's not a linear path. You know, the stages of grief are one framework for looking at a past relationship.
It's not a linear path. It's very natural. Okay.
But it's not a straight line. It curves, it ebbs, it flows.
Well,
It's very curvy. How does that help?
I love you so much. Thank you. I feel so regulated already.
You can call me anytime.
See you next therapy.
Hey, cheers!
There's a real regulator.
To understanding. Refreshing breakfast wine.
Dude, I cannot wait to have my therapy appointment tomorrow. It's like
Really because all your issues with the one dude that you've known forever.
What are you doing?
Are you texting Jeff?
No.
Is she texting Jeff? Girl, give me that phone! Give me that phone! Phone! Give me that fucking phone, baby girl!
So it's hard to break out of this trap of surrender, master-slave, injunctions, fixes, constant gaslighting.
I will perfect the art of gaslighting me. Gaslighting me. I will perfect the art of gaslighting me.
Fantasy defenses are strong.